My name is Chanel Lum, and today I'll be discussing Angelo and Cross's classroom assessment technique, Minute Paper. The Minute Paper is an extremely versatile classroom assessment technique. An instructor will ask students to respond to some variation of the question, what is the most important thing you learned during this class, and what important questions remained unanswered? Students are given a few minutes to write down their responses on index cards or half a sheet of paper and hand them in. Thus, this technique is called the 1-minute paper or half-sheet response. It is a quick and simple way to gather written feedback on student learning. The 1-minute paper is a classroom assessment technique thought to have been created at UC Berkeley by Professor Charles Schwartz in the late 1970s to early 1980s, as cited by Vera in his paper, The 1-Minute Paper Technique, Promoting Teachers' Innovation. But why use this classroom assessment technique? As stated by Angelo and Cross, the greatest advantage of minute papers is that they provide manageable amounts of timely and useful feedback for a minimal investment of time and energy. Now let's go over some of the advantages to minute papers. Minute papers allow for immediate, mid-course feedback to teachers and a quick response to students. This is especially important as all questions have a limited lifespan. Responses for minute papers can be easily read and analyzed even in large classes with little effort. Instructors can answer common questions that students may have, distinguish if main points are being understood, and facilitate active learning by engaging the students. Not only is this assessment technique helpful to instructors to evaluate student understanding, but it acts as a self-assessment technique for students to gauge their comprehension of materials that they have just learned or studied. Minute papers allow individual students to compare their responses with those of the class as a whole. Now let's take a look at when it's best to use minute papers as a classroom assessment technique. Though easily adaptable, minute papers are most useful in lecture and discussion settings. Minute papers can be easily administered by teachers at the start or end of any session as a warm-up or wrap-up technique to preface a lesson or analyze a student's understanding of the information provided. It may also be beneficial to administer a minute paper as a tool to check in with students when there is a lot of new information being presented. Though this technique is simple to use, it is more difficult than it appears to create questions that can be used to generate immediate feedback. If not clearly worded, it can be difficult for the instructor to comprehend and summarize the feedback written by students. Angelo and Cross remind us that if minute papers are used too often or incorrectly, students may view this technique as gimmicky or as a simple polling exercise, thus degrading the quality of responses provided. Though flexible, minute papers are not a universally applicable technique. It should only be used in sessions where learners can be asked to highlight significant topics or note unanswered questions that they might have. Information is not always perceived the same way by every learner. Responses to feedback from minute papers should lead students towards a desired learning outcome and show no irritation or bias from the teacher. All feedback should be given in a timely manner for it to be relevant and significant to the learners. It is important to set aside a limited amount of time to spend on feedback. Remember, it is important to set learner expectations in advance. As an instructor, you may not be able to comment on every point or question submitted. If students are made aware in advance that only 3 of the most commonly raised points or questions will be answered, it will prevent individual learner disappointment. Feedback for minute papers should be given in a timely manner, ideally the next session. Instructors are able to cover 3 of the most common points or questions from the responses and further elaborate or clarify as needed. This quick feedback from minute papers helps students to solidify their comprehension of a point before further learning is then facilitated. Now that you've learned a little bit more about Classroom Assessment Technique number 6, Minute Paper by Angela Cross, consider trying minute papers in your class and saving responses from early in the term to compare with responses at midterm and later. Thanks for listening, and best of luck.